Hi everybody, I'm Scott Matloff for Habs Eyes on the Prize, and welcome to the first of hopefully many of my weekly series recap videos. As you can see from my phone and my face that has mostly angst and a little bit of anger on it for no good reason, the Canadiens just got done having their lunch handed to them by the Ottawa Senators 5-1 in their fourth preseason game. If you are keeping track so far, the Canadiens have won approximately 0 preseason games so far this year, and the amount that should make you panic is approximately 0. It's the preseason. It's really not that big of a deal. They lost 3-2 to the Boston Bruins in, a closely contested game. It's the first game of the preseason. There really aren't a whole ton of expectations. Players are trying to find chemistry with new line mates. Coaches are trying out different defensive combinations. And we played we played El Montoya and then a guy who spent the entirety of last year in the ECHL and Zach Fucale. Not a big deal. The following game, with a mostly NHL-ready lineup, we, as in the Canadiens, absolutely took it to the Washington Capitals and were a bit unlucky before losing 4-2. That game was a coming-out party for a few players and was undone by Devontae Smith-Pelly finally making an impact in Montreal 2 teams later after we traded him. Things happen. It's the preseason. A puck went off his skate for the game-winning goal, and Tom Wilson scored an empty netter before getting suspended. Who really cares? What's important is that there were players in these games that stood out. They lost to the Devils, and then tonight they obviously lost to the Senators. Who really cares? It's the preseason. Players are still getting back into game shape, getting into game speed. You can work out all summer and skate all summer. Until you actually get in there in a game with your new line mates and develop your chemistry, there's really not all that much to be panicking about. But the thing is, there are some bright spots that should be pointed out, and 2 of those are rookies who were looking to make an impact, and so far this preseason have absolutely shown that. Now, as we get into who these prospects are, obviously one is my favorite prospect of arguably almost ever. I mean, I wasn't a big prospect guy until I got really in-depth covering the AHL, but Charles Hudon has been absolutely outstanding this preseason. He's shown people all the way up to a national level, from people like TSN and The Athletic and everything like that, just what he's capable of. People are now realizing what I have been screaming on Twitter about for the past 3 years. He's extremely ferocious on the puck. He gets in, he makes plays happen, and he is in the right place at the right time to finish plays off. He alongside Tomas Buchanan and Arturi Lehkonen on a line, have been easily the best that the Canadiens have had in this preseason, and he can do it on his own too. Just take a look at the game against the Capitals. He scores a goal, comes in, and absolutely walks a Capitals defender so badly that I'm pretty sure he had to retire afterwards, and then rings one off the crossbar. He was this close to scoring 2 goals in less than a minute, and already solidifying his place in the lineup. Tonight he goes out and he absolutely rips one into the corner off of a perfect feed. I don't know what else he can do. Even if he were waiver eligible this year, I'm almost positive the Canadiens have no choice but to keep him in the lineup right now. He has been that good so far. And the other player that's been absolutely outstanding, as you can tell from my London Knights jersey, has been Victor Mete. The 2016 4th-round draft pick, he was kind of quiet, and then this year, I believe it was Mitch Brown, really pointed out how much of a well-rounded defender he has become. Everyone knows that he can skate and make things happen in the offensive zone, but he's become extremely well-versed at playing in his own end. He's not the biggest guy, but he knows how to use his stick and position himself to make plays happen. And even better, Claude Julien has him paired right alongside Shea Weber. I can't think of anyone on the Canadiens roster right now that would be better to teach Victor Mete how to adjust to the NHL level than Shea Weber. Sure, I mean, their styles are a little bit different. Weber is a little bit more, methodical in the way that he plays, and Mete he gets up and he goes. He's down the ice and he's making things happen deep in the offensive zone with the puck. But if you're going to learn from a guy, Shea Weber's probably the one. He's been on Team Canada. He's got every accolade from coach that you can imagine outside of a Norris Trophy. He's exactly the kind of person I want a young prospect learning from. And both of them, Mete, even though he hasn't played a ton in the preseason, when he has, he's been highly impressive, and that's exactly what people are hoping to see. With Noah Juleson out injured, unfortunately, Mete may have a chance to make it into the lineup especially with a few players possibly playing themselves out of an NHL spot to start the season. And speaking of players who haven't been super overly impressive when people were hoping they might take that next step forward going into this season, the one I've seen complained about the most, and it's no fault of his, is Nikita Scherbak. Now, the one they call Mango, or at least I call him Mango still, he has what I like to call Alexander Semin syndrome, in that it looks like he's floating or not doing much, but when you look deeper into what stats that he's putting up in that game, he's usually right at the top of the chart of players who had a high impact. Mitch Brown pointed out on Twitter to myself that last year, only I believe 2 players didn't have a higher expected goals for when playing with Scherbak. He, despite not having the best offensive season on the team, it's kind of hard to beat Chris Terry being an offensive juggernaut like he was. Scherbak probably had the biggest impact on his teammates, even if it doesn't always show up to the eye test. On the stat sheet, it proves that he's actually helping his teammates a lot more than it shows. He kind of looks like he's floating, but then he'll get the puck and he'll dart in and he'll get a scoring chance or he'll set up a play. He had a few lazy penalties, but it's the preseason. People are getting back into game shape, and that's just part of the game. It's what happens. Other players who maybe haven't turned out quite as well as I had hoped so far, Eric Jelena has been... He's got a good shot, I guess. I'm looking at him right now as someone I'll go, he's not really playing himself into another NHL job if the Canadiens cut him tonight. He might be playing himself into an AHL-only job in Laval this year. Right now, Noah Juleson has a fractured foot. He's out 6 to 8 weeks, I believe. That's a huge blow for the Rocket right now, who at least got Zach Redmond back through waivers this week. He's going to likely lead that team alongside Matt Teromina, who I assume will be part of the cuts that are coming tonight as I'm filming this video. When the cuts happen, I will probably post an annotation or something along with this that makes up for my lack of knowledge currently. Outside of that, Michael McCarron and Jacob Delarose both have been, there's no way to put it, they've been underwhelming. McCarron coming into this year needed a good, looking preseason. He didn't have the greatest NHL season last year at all, by any measure at all. And in the AHL, he didn't seem to be that guy he was in his rookie year. He had his flashes, but he wasn't quite where he needed to be. And then, of course, obviously called up to Montreal for most of the season. He didn't get a chance to play the major minutes that he needed in, St. John's. He can develop into a very good bottom 6 center, but he needs to not be playing 8 minutes a night. He should be playing 15 to 20 or however many as a top center in the AHL right now. He will likely learn more about developing his game that way than playing limited minutes in the NHL. It worked for Jacob Delarose this year. They finally left him in one spot to learn and grow his game. He responded with his best offensive season, and he was a major factor in every single game that I watched the Ice Caps play last year. As for outside of, we have players who are struggling. That's, perfectly all right. That's not a big deal. We do have a few people that we don't really quite know what they're capable of yet because they've been injured. Obviously, Noah Juleson played one game against the Bruins, fractured his foot, and is out for a couple of months now. That's kind of an issue. Jeremiah Addison, who's coming off an absolutely outstanding Memorial Cup run, had a lot of Habs fans excited as a 7th-round pick coming into camp. He got leveled by Mason Marchment in the rookie tournament in Toronto, and I don't know if that's the hit that caused his shoulder injury, but he got shoulder surgery this past week. He's out 6 months. That's kind of a huge blow for the Rocket, who could have used someone like him. He's a very good energy guy, but he also has the ability to be a very good goal scorer when called upon. David Schlemko is a hand injury. We're not really sure how serious that is right now. He's the only defenseman, I believe, who hasn't played in a game yet. So I know Claude Julien and other people have mentioned that they might see him alongside Shea Weber. His not being there has been to Victor Mete's advantage. The young kid's taken absolute advantage of that situation. He's jumped in, he's fit in alongside Shea Weber, and he's, produced so far in the game that he's played. You can't ask for more than that. And then obviously the scary one is Andrew Shaw has a neck injury and has been day-to-day. What's unfortunate about this was he suffered this injury the day after he sat down with Sportsnet's Eric Engels for an exclusive interview where he talked about his battle with concussions in the previous year and how he hid through them and everything. It's a great article. You should go look it out, go read it, and realize that there's a lot more to this game than just hockey. These are human beings that need to take care of themselves, and hopefully it is just a neck issue, nothing upstairs, because the last thing I want to see is a guy who suffered all summer and got cleared the week before training camp started for contact to suffer another concussion right now in his career. He's young. He just got married. I hope he's all right. He should hopefully be back to the ice soon. So, but outside of that, there are more cuts coming, obviously. After tonight's game, Claude Julien announced that there are more cuts coming. I would assume you would see some of the AHL guys on, their ELCs or on AHL-only contracts be sent down. So David Brohl, someone like Jeremy Gregoire, Matt Taormina might be sent down. I believe, I don't know if, I can't remember if McNiven has been sent down already or not, but you would likely see those guys be the next ones to sent down. The Laval Rocket open up training camp next week, and they probably want as many bodies in there to start getting ready, or for Sylvain Lefebvre to start putting together his lineup and get ready for some preseason action, I believe. So that's all I got from the Habs side of things. There's really not too much else going on right now. I mean, the next preseason game isn't until Monday, I believe, against the Toronto Maple Leafs. If I'm wrong, please yell at me on Twitter, the internet, any other way. It kind of happens that way. But around the NHL, there's also plenty happening, and you're probably knowing exactly where this is going. You've also just gotten a face-off violation, and you've also just been called for slashing. The NHL decided to tighten up on these things, and for slashing, to prevent injuries, I'm all for it. I don't want to see Mark Mathot's, finger, hanging off by a little thread again, because that was disgusting and made me want to die a little bit on the inside. But you don't want to see star players getting hacked by some guy on the fourth line because he can't keep up. Are some of the calls a little ticky-tack? Yes, but if they're calling everything, this close to the line, players are going to stop doing it because they're going to get called for it. And, what are you going to do? You adjust your game or you don't play because you take too many penalties. As for the face-off violation thing, I don't understand it at all. It's, I'm watching guys get thrown out. We want to speed up the game and we want more goals. If you want to call more penalties, do it on things that happen in the game, like clutch and grab interference and stuff every time someone dumps the puck in. Don't do it because one guy's skate was this far over the line. It's stupid, fans hate it, and trust me, the minute you call one penalty, everyone's going to turn against you and boo it. That's all I got on that. It's the face-off violation thing I don't understand. Slashing, I'm all for it. Go ahead, call it right down the line. George Parros said he wanted to crack down on it. At least they're following through with that for now until it changes 3 months into the season. Sort of Habs news. The Canadiens followed and unfollowed someone very interesting on Twitter this week. Matt Duchene was followed by the Montreal Canadiens and then unfollowed within a few hours, setting off rampant speculation, thanks to Reddit for screen capping this, by the way, that maybe something's going to happen, but maybe it's not, but maybe it is, but it's probably not, because Joe Sakic is asking way too much for a player that he has no leverage over anymore. He's backed himself into a corner with a player who's unhappy, his demands are too high, and no one wants to meet that right now. If people really want him, Sakic's going to have to come down to their asking price, not the other way around. The Vegas Golden Knights Twitter was great when it started. More people are starting to be annoyed by it in that they're trying too hard to be funny and trying to fit in. Quite frankly, I don't care. As long as you're not being offensive like the LA Kings Twitter account has been before, just have some personality. Find that nice balance between, being professional and fun. Don't be, a statue and just go, this is what happened at the game tonight. But, have some fun with it. But don't go too far over the top because you're going to turn off some fans. And I understand that it's not for everyone. Old, longtime hockey fans aren't always going to be a fan of what the Vegas Knights Twitter does. Guess what? It's for new people. It's not always going to be for you. It's not always about you. If they're getting new fans into the game, good. All the more the merrier. It's always better that way. And finally, preseason hockey games. I understand that everyone goes, oh, it's just a preseason hockey game. Yeah, well, some of us have watched no hockey all summer and need their fix, quite frankly. And in reality, if you're saying you have a preseason game, one, NHL TV, don't list it if there's no streams for it. And two, teams, why aren't you streaming the games? You have fans who want to watch these people. They want to see their prospects play. They want to see some of these new guys that they signed in the offseason play. And if you're not providing them a way to watch these games outside of living in the area or going to the game, you aren't helping your fan base. And this is especially true in some of the newer markets, teams like Carolina and stuff. You've got a growing fan base and more people want to get into it. Give them a way to watch the games. If you don't do that, it's kind of hard to grow your fan base in the preseason, because then you got, oh, who's that guy out there? It's like, well, we signed him in the offseason. Didn't you see him in the preseason? No, because the games weren't on TV and they weren't on NHL TV. And then you wonder why people go on the dark corners of the internet to find ways to watch these videos. So now to the last segment. I know you're all sad to see this wonderful face leave your screens, but time for the few questions I got. Remember, if you ever have any questions you want to have featured on this weekly mailbag recap, whatever we want to call it, hashtag EOTP Weekly on Twitter. Makes it easy to search out. Once or twice a week, I'll throw a tweet out there with the hashtag and asking for questions or anything you want to see discussed so far. But one of the first question I got comes from Twitter. This person wanted to know, does Charles Hudon have more offensive potential or prowess right now than Arturi Lehkonen did at the beginning of last season? It's kind of hard to say, because Lehkonen has a whole lot of assets that make him very appealing, as does Hudon. Hudon has, silky hands, he's relentless on the puck, and he's got a great variety of weapons when he shoots. Lehkonen has an absolute laser of a wrist shot and is one of the best defensive forwards the Canadiens have, even if he was just a rookie last year. It's fair to call them even, but I might give the edge to Lehkonen, given his experience and what he did in the NHL last year. But given what Hudon is doing so far in the preseason this year, it might be a lot closer than I originally thought. However, next question comes from the lovely managing editor of our sister site, Raw Charge, who wants to know how great the Mikhail Sergachev trade is for Tampa Bay. And quite frankly, it's a great trade for both teams, because the Canadiens get a brand new superstar forward that they can dangle and say, look how shiny he is, and believe me, he's talented as hell, and I love that. Mikhail Sergachev has the potential to be an absolute force in the NHL. He can shoot, he can move the puck, but he has to grow into the NHL game right now. As of right now, from what I've seen, he had a great goal in Tampa Bay's preseason, but he's going to have to show this on a consistent basis. Can he stick at the NHL speed? Because that was the biggest issue with him last year, was in the games that he played for Montreal, you can see what he's thinking, but he's got to get it up to game speed quickly and use those skills at an NHL level where you're playing against bigger opponents, faster opponents, and you have to make your decisions that much quicker. That's always the hardest part for new players, rookies, prospects, whatever, to overcome going into their season. And then finally, why, despite the Leafs being better, do they always lose to the Canadiens? Better is a very loose term, I'll say. Sure, you've got Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, but if my team was trash for half a decade too, maybe we would be better. But the real answer is we have Carey Price in net, and that's the great equalizer for pretty much everything. You could outshoot us by 20 shots, and it's Carey Price in net. Andrew Shaw goes down and scores in overtime, and you've lost 14 straight in a row. So that's really it. It's Carey Price. He's got that thing. When he plays the Leafs and he plays the Bruins, it is a different goalie in net than even the best goalie in the world in the NHL. He is the great equalizer for all things Montreal. Is that going to change this year? Who knows? Toronto's only going to get better with the prospects they have, and Montreal's defense is now down one of their better puck movers. Who knows what could happen this year? Montreal could win every game and be, 20 in a row or something like that. Or Toronto could finally snap that streak and get back into it and make this rivalry exciting again, and we don't just have to hear about how it was exciting in the 1970s when both teams actually won things on a regular basis. So that's all I got. Thanks for tuning in. As always, you can like and subscribe the video down below. The Habs Eyes on the Prize Twitter and my Twitter are both linked there. So share this, let me know your feedback, and let me know what you want to see in the coming week, all right? Later, everybody.